Hola, buenas noches, buenas tardes, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight on En Casa con la Plaza, Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. And muy feliz Dia de los Muertos. All right, hope you're able to have joined with your ancestors in celebration of their lives and, of course, celebrating their closeness to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on En Casa con la Plaza. I'm going to give you just a little bit of what's going on at La Plaza this weekend. It's a fantastic event that we have. This is like an annual thing that we do. This is the 21st annual Encuentro de Jaraneros de California. The Jaraneros, of course, are the adherents and the experts in son jarocho. And from 12 to 9, it's one group after another. We're having El Conjunto Guayapan, Hermanas Jardín, Latina Arts Academy, Los Hermanos Herrera, Conjunto Xi, Los Tiburones del Golfo. I mean, nonstop music, danzantes. We'll have some food there, some vendors. It's a can't miss event, and it's free there at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes at 501 North Main Street there in downtown LA, right across from Olivera Street. So come on down. If you're just able to stick around for a couple of the acts, you won't go home disappointed. And also at the end, of course, we also, they traditionally have their fandango, where all the groups get together. And often we have some special guest stars. In the last year, for instance, we had La Marisol. She showed up to sing along with the Jaraneros. So hope you could make it. All right, that's what's happening in La Plaza, along with our exhibitions, 18th and Grand, Calle Principal, LA starts here. We're open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 to 5. We're free of charge. Our gift store is open, so it's time for that holiday shopping. I mean, Halloween just passed, so now it's Christmas season. So come on down to check out all the different offerings from local artists, artisans, and authors there at La Plaza's Tienda. All right, and that's it for this little preview or this commercial of what's going on in La Plaza. Let's get on with the happy hour. And how could we not go on with the happy hour without the host, Dan Guerrero? Please join us, Dan.
You better not do it without Dan Guerrero. I'll be very unhappy. So jarocho music, I love jarocho music. Wow, that's a full day.
It's an entire day, and they bring it. They bring the danzantes, they bring their conjuntos. It's an incredible experience. And if you love la música veracruzana, that's the place to be this Saturday.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I know the size of the staff over there and all the programming you do. I can't believe it. I really can't believe it.
Well, thank you, Dan. We work hard to make things happen there at La Plaza, and it's all for the community, of course.
Oh, yeah. It's a great place. And La Marisol, she's the only one that's there more than me. She's there all the time, isn't she? Oh, which is great because we love her. We love her.
We love her. And as you know, we honored her just a couple weeks back there at our Pobladores Awards Gala. And
I presented it to her, so I remember it very well.
Certainly did. All right,
She's
Dan.
Great.
Well, I'm gonna before you ask me to go, I'm gonna go on my own. So
that sounds good. Well, hello everyone. Happy Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. Is that happy? I guess it is. So I'm very excited about tonight's guest. I'm always excited with my guests, but I'm a huge fan of this treasure of a theater in Pasadena. I've gone there for many years, seen their productions, and I've been trying to get together with the producing artistic director. She does with her husband. They each have that title, I believe, of A Noise Within. And she's here tonight, and I'm very excited. So I think we should bring her on. Zoom in, Julia Rodriguez-Elliott.
Hello.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you?
You must be exhausted. You're a little jet lagged. You were off with your daughter looking at colleges or something, right?
Actually visiting my son who goes to North Carolina School of the Arts and actually seeing him in a play.
Oh, wow. Well, of
Yeah,
course he's in a play. Of course he's in
I know, right? Can't keep them away.
No, no, no. Listen, once it's there, as you know very, very well.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to toast you and A Noise Within, that wonderful theater. My gosh, here's to you.
Well, thank you. Look at you. You're so elegant. I'm drinking water.
Well, I wore a guayabera especially for you,
Oh, I
for
love
your
it. That's
for your
beautiful.
Cuban roots, for my Cuban roots.
I love it. I love that detail. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool, huh? I
Oh my
like it.
gosh, that's wonderful.
And it looks good with my pajama bottom
Wow.
that I'm
Well,
wearing.
I was going to say your background looks great, and mine looks like I'm part of a witness protection program.
Not at all, not at all. We've got so much to talk about. I can't wait. First of all, I consider you superwoman. I mean, what you and your husband, Geoff Elliott, have done over 30 years with Noise Within, running that theater, producing, artistic director, directing many of the shows, and you have two kids. I have to salute you once again that you're standing or sitting at this moment.
Yes, and then we're still together.
That's right. That alone. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to start with the name of the theater and the theater company, A Noise Within. Where does that come from exactly? I thought it was a line from a play or something, but I Googled and nothing.
Well, you're not too far off. It's actually a stage direction in Hamlet, Shakespeare's
Wow,
Hamlet, which was actually the first play that we ever produced, that A Noise Within ever produced. And we
that's
didn't
right.
have a name. And we were sitting around the table reading the play. And we looked at each other and thought, the company doesn't have a name. And we came across the stage direction, and my husband, Geoff, circled it. And he said, what about that? And so A Noise Within, and it's a stage direction that basically indicates that there's some activity happening off stage and before characters enter.
I
So
see.
ultimately I loved it. It's a name that it's come to mean so many different things for us, just in terms of
Of
the
course.
noise within all of us that seeks expression. And when we first started, we were in this very tall, 5-story building, and we were up on the third floor and making noise up there. So there was that part of it as well.
And you're still making noise after all these years.
You got to make noise.
In a good way. And I understand too, someone told me along the way, you might know since you're such a Shakespeare expert, that even the green room, everybody's in the green room, that came from the days of Shakespeare. And do you know why?
I've forgotten why. You're going to tell me, I'm sure.
I hope so. Otherwise, I'd look like a fool bringing it up. That it was a room where they used to store all the shrubbery, all the greenery for the sets, and so
right.
people were now it's the green room, and they have swag and they have champagne. In those days, they were sitting among.
It was the shrubbery. That's right.
That's right. But I love the tag to A Noise Within, which is classic theater, modern magic. I love that. And no one could argue that you do that all the time there.
Well, it's got to be about the here and now. These plays, we look at the world through the lens of these classic plays, but through very much a 21st century sensibility. So I always like to say that we're not museum theater, yes, that it's really about having a conversation with our audiences around what our current concerns, our 21st century concerns are.
And you do that well. I've seen so many productions there, and even though and we'll get to that in a minute, but especially I just saw, and it's still running till November 8th, I believe, A Midsummer Night's Dream.
November 12th. Yeah.
November 12th. So there's time. It's worth it. And we're gonna show a short video, and then I want to talk about that in particular. Okay.
Okay.
I think there was audio with that. I'm not sure, but look at that. It really is magic. And my question is, I've seen so many productions there. How do you consistently take old shows, classics, old, they've been around forever. We've all seen a million productions of Midsummer Night's Dream, and reconceive the whole production with such imagination and such inventive ways that make it new. You know, you don't think, oh, I'm seeing Midsummer Nights again, or Juliet, Romeo. Everyone's seen them a million times, and how you can take and stay true to the original, of course, but absolutely make it contemporary and eye-poppingly beautiful. All the productions there are so beautiful. How do you do that? I think it's peyote.
It's either peyote, or I always tell people I was an only child, so I had a very active imagination that worked overtime.
Yes, yes.
You know,
I mean, really.
These plays are just so extraordinary, and they also always offer such extraordinary opportunities, and they're always relevant. You know, that's why they've stood the test of time. And Shakespeare plays, in particularly as a director, offers so much opportunity, and they're terrifying to go into, because Shakespeare doesn't give you a lot of clues in terms of how to create the world. So you're really creating a world from scratch, and that world has to have a common language and a specificity and all these things. And as you say, you have to look at it with fresh eyes. I always like to read plays as if, particularly with classics and particularly with Shakespeare, as if no one's ever produced them before, and I'm looking at them for the first time. Otherwise, it's really so daunting to approach them, because everybody has some context and some history with a Shakespeare production. And hopefully when you do that, and then when you choose a play, as we do, often around a theme and around things that we're preoccupied with, it you know, globally or personally, or as a local community, things tend to come together in a way that you begin to focus on the things that at this particular moment in time, in terms of the play, really appeal to you and really feel that will lead to a great conversation, which is what I'm always interested in with our audience. And out of that, things emerge. We also have the gift of extraordinary designers that are part of our resident company. Our composer for this, Robert Oriole, who's an extraordinary musician and composer, our lighting designer, Ken Booth, Angela Kalin, our costume designer, our set designer, Frederica Nacimiento. These are really incredible designers that I have a long history with. We've worked together, some of us, for 30, 40 plays. And so they're part of that process as well, as you start to create the environment or the artistic box, if you will, that the play lives in. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be doing this play right now, because there's so much going on in the world, that to be able to present a play that goes from, it appears to be heading towards tragedy as it starts, but there's the opportunity for transformation, and a world that is in chaos and disorder ultimately reaches harmony through the power of love. And we all need that right now.
We need that badly. Yeah. We need that badly. Now, you and Geoff, your husband Geoff, directed this together. So yes, you know the show inside out, obviously. So do you sit and go, now, what could we do that makes this different, or what? It's all what you just said, right? It's the vision, and you obviously have like vision, or you wouldn't be together after 30 years, professionally and personally. You must have a like vision.
We do, and Geoff directs on his own, and I direct solo all the time. And then every now and then there's a production that we think, we really would like to do this together, because we both really value and enjoy that collaboration. And this was a play that we wanted, to tackle, you know, as partners. And we both work together in the creating of the world. I tend to be very visual, so often I spend a lot of time on where the play is going to live. What does it look like? What is the language of the production? And Geoff is phenomenal in terms of text work and working with actors. And so I think that we complement each other in the rehearsal process. And it's one of those things that from the time that we started doing it is very organic. As I said before, for most people, working with their husband or wife would be their worst nightmare, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
one of those things that because we have very similar training, we train in very much the same way, and we see theater through a very similar lens. It's very, very seamless when we're in a room together. So
And
there's no need to say, oh, you tackle act one, I'll tackle act two. It just really happens organically.
right, each goes to where they need to go.
Yes.
And there they are. Look at that beautiful couple. Ah. You mentioned because you do have an in-house team of resident artists of about 20, which includes actors as well as your scenic design and sound design and lighting and all that. So obviously they know your language. You probably have to say, you know, and they'll go, right. I mean, I would think by now that team. And as I say, visually, every time I go there to see, and I always tell friends, the productions are always gorgeous. They're just gorgeous.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's a real gift. It's a real gift to have a resident company with our actors. A lot of them, there's about 6 or 7 resident artists in our production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and there's that language, and I suppose more importantly, there's a sense of trust. Because we have all worked together, that we're willing to come into the room and play. And I might say something completely off the wall, and you know, these wonderful humans will say, let's try it, let's see what happens. And conversely, they feel like they have the freedom to try anything in the room. And what you try to do is create a safe environment where people are willing to try things and fail big and discover and create. And so to have a resident company, it's such a gift as a director. And of course, we also have wonderful guest artists who come in and play with us. As in Midsummer, there's several guest artists as well. So I feel like you get the best of both worlds. You get this group that has this trust and this common language, and then you get our guest artists that come in and bring new energy and animate the process.
And feel like they've landed in heaven, I would suspect.
You know, because they come into a space, and our resident artists really set the tone for what we value and what A Noise Within it is about. So when they come in, I think that guest artists can relax, because there are others there that have come before them, and they can feel like, okay, this is a space that's going to embrace artists, and we're going to be in a safe environment to tell these great stories.
And I think that they just know they're in good hands. I mean, and you know, as you know, I'm a producer, and you know, sometimes there are gigs that you're like, this couldn't be more perfect. I love the project. I love every actor I'm working with. I do a lot of the Soraya. It's such a wonderful place, Thor, and it's such a safe and loving environment. Everybody treats everyone with respect, and wow, that's when you feel you've landed in heaven. And it doesn't always happen. So for you, it's there all the time. And I'm sure when artists come in, guest artists, they just scoot right in. It must be just fantastic.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there aren't times when you don't have challenges, but you know, to me, that's everything. It's the life is too short factor. You have to be in a rehearsal room with people who you know, who you're there to have a good time and to support each other. Otherwise, it's just too hard to work.
Yeah, and it is playtime. I mean,
it is
not to diminish, you know, but it is playtime. We're pretending. We're playing.
And you have to have that sense of play that, you know, that unfortunately, as we enter adulthood, we tend to lose, but the children have. And that is one of the things that I love about Midsummer Night's Dream, because to me, of Shakespeare's plays is the one that views the world most like a child does.
Yeah.
And so it presents just so many opportunities to activate the imagination.
Now, classic theater is your love, I know, but you also do lots of contemporary pieces. Nilo Cruz, you did On in the Tropics. Coming up, you have Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye and Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, which I'm really looking forward to. So you do contemporary pieces as well. I'll be curious what you do with Sweeney Todd, because I've seen about, I don't know, 20 productions, including the original, and I'm seeing Josh Groban in a couple of weeks.
Oh my
God.
Yeah,
so in New York. So I'm coming with a yellow pad and a pencil to that.
Lord, see what I mean? See what I mean?
No, but how you approach the contemporary theater as in the same way, I would imagine, that you do classic pieces.
Yes, and these are all the plays that you mentioned are modern classics. So you are looking at them, and there's that whole, you know, true yesterday, true today, true tomorrow, and there can be a play that was written last year that can fit within that.
Exactly.
And so, you know, undoubtedly it ends up being somewhat subjective, but certainly that is what we look at in terms of what is this play saying to us, and will it be speaking to us, you know, in 100 years?
So you are still doing classics. They're just modern classics. That's
exactly.
That's right. I want to talk a little bit about your education programs, which are phenomenal, and you have so many of them. The one, and I'm going to be in New York, so I can't go because I would love to see it. You're doing one with young people, and I will tell you what it is right now. That's November 8th, free and open to the public. It is The Show Must Go On Monologue Festival. Tell us about that particular one, and they're from students 9 through 12 from all over the city.
That's right, and they submit monologues of their choosing, and then there are eight finalists who will be presenting on the 8th, and they talk about what I love about this is that they're wonderful in terms of their performances, but when the students talk about why they chose these pieces, why they think this is a piece that is a classic, and they're often, again, modern classics that they're choosing, and also why it spoke personally to them. And which of course is everything, because one of the reasons that we started the education program is because you often read these plays in the classroom and they didn't resonate in the way that they have the power to resonate. And for us, we wanted students to have an experience with these great stories that made it relevant to them and to their own lives. And that experience really only happens when you get to sit in a room and in a space and watch, have an experience with live theater. It's like, you know, people always say Shakespeare was never intended to be read. It was intended to be experienced. And you see that happening when the students come into a space. We just had a student matinee this morning. In fact, for Midsummer Night's Dream, we've done a total of 12 school day matinees, and the work resonates so deeply when the students get to come in and experience it. And you know, I know it did for me. I unfortunately didn't get to experience Shakespeare till I was in college, but I remember the Royal Shakespeare Company visiting our campus, and they did an evening of love scenes. And when I left the theater, I sat outside and I wept. I was so profoundly moved by what I just experienced, and it changed the trajectory of my life. and we want kids to have that experience. I want them to have it before they get to college. I wanted them to have it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why our education program is so focused on bringing students to the theater to experience the work and the environment that it was intended.
Absolutely. And you can change your life. It doesn't mean everyone's going to go into the theater, but it's totally a life-changing experience. It happened for me when I went to see the film Oklahoma when it first came out. And then I realized it was a theater piece, and I was a musical comedy nerd by the time I was, 13. Just going to see that play, or you can change your life, these young people.
And you want them to feel like, to me as a Cuban young woman, when I was in college, that it resonated deeply with me. And I remember going back to class and asking my acting instructor that if I could do a Shakespeare monologue, and he looked at me suspiciously and said, sure. And then I came back and I worked on a monologue, and when I was done with my monologue, he smiled and he said, Julia, this is really not for you. And I thought,
what a nerd.
What does that mean? And I went away and I thought that he meant that I wasn't up to, to the skill level to be performing Shakespeare, which of course I wasn't. I was, just starting out. But then I came to realize that he was basically saying, based on who you are and where you come from, these plays are not for you. You should focus on something else. And that just didn't sit well with me. And so, how dare you tell me that these plays don't belong, that these stories that resonated so deeply with me are not for me. And so to me, it's always been part of my passion to ensure that no matter who you are and where you come from, that these stories are yours.
I'm trying to decide which of 9 places to go next, because you gave me so much there. I read somewhere where the immigrant experience is part of your DNA. Tell me about that and how that reflects in your work.
Well, I think that it reflects in my work in terms of I think what I spoke to, the desire to ensure that these stories are about the here and now, and that we are reflecting our community when we tell these stories. So that's something that is always, a driver for me, is that when you come to see a Shakespeare play, you see yourself reflected, whether it's Shakespeare or whether it's other classic stories, that you're there and you're represented, and that these are characters that, when a young person comes to the theater, they can relate to, and they can see themselves in these stories. So that, I would say that that's very much a driver for me. I think also the motivation to forge ahead and not take no for an answer is very much a part of the, as what drives the immigrant experience when you're coming into a country where you don't, speak the language, and you feel displaced and all of that. There's a drive that also comes with that I'm very grateful for.
Yes, I was going to say that, not everyone would react that way. That teacher might have squished many a person who don't have that kind of drive and decide he must be right. I mean, that's what's so frightening about.
It is because it was very hurtful, and it's not. I didn't rebound immediately. It took some time for me to think about it and try to understand the implications of that. And then really was lucky enough to get accepted to ACT in San Francisco, where I had an opportunity to play all kinds of roles there. So that, again, really changed the direction of my world. At that time, I was an actor, and ultimately I decided not to do that because I fell in love with directing almost, accidentally. And but those opportunities, I think, gave me the confidence to know to continue and to say, this is for me, and it is for others like me as well.
I would say that man had never heard of Joe Papp, or was this pre-Papp?
No. How old do you think I am?
You're young. That's what I'm saying. You're young.
No, there were a lot of people like that then,
Yeah,
There's-
and
there's
they're
st-
still
there's-
out there.
They're still out there, but thankfully not as many. There's, I think, greater awareness.
Yes, for sure. We're going to go and move on because I'm going to hear about little Julia. I want to hear about little Julia. But before we do, I want to back up because we have the video of some of the education classes that those faces, and I do want to show that. So Abelardo, who was thinking, you forgot. I think there's audio.
At A Noise Within, a key component of our education program is going into the community and serving the kids in our neighborhoods. Before you guys come to the show next Tuesday, we're going to put you in the role of director.
I want to actually be like a director for like movies and stuff. So I feel like learning like different types of directing is actually like a really good thing.
When I was in high school, the way that they taught Shakespeare,
our acting students were introduced to sort of the key characters and themes of Othello through some hands-on activities. They got excited about the text.
I just thought, oh my God, these characters are so good. You understand them.
I never really thought about theater much until this moment, and now it's like, wow, so much visual representations of art all at once together into this giant play, and I think that's really cool.
I'm sorry about that audio, but what I see there is diversity, inclusiveness, and all that is very much a part of your mission at A Noise Within.
Absolutely. Front and center.
Not just in the education department, but in the productions that you choose to do, and in your acting company. It's there. It's front and center.
And that's something that we're always looking at. What are the stories that have not been told on our stage, and how can we ensure that those voices are being heard on the A Noise Within stage?
Let's talk about little Julia. Now, you grew up
little Julia.
Little Julia. She was this big. You were and are an only child, and you grew up in a Cuban household with I guess you shared a room with a Cubana Auntie Mame. It sounds like your maiden aunt. She must have been fantastic.
Oh my God! How did you know that?
I know everything.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Yes.
Tell me about her.
Oh, she was, I always tell people, part of who I am has to do with the fact that I shared a room with her. I mean, she was just a bigger than life character. She had all sorts of boyfriends, and things often didn't go well, and there was a lot of drama around that. And I was often her confidant, at the ripe age of like 6 or 7 years old, as she'd be sobbing. And we had twin beds in our room. One was hers and one was mine.
That was actually your first acting teacher. That was really your first acting teacher.
She was. And she had would often take me out on dates because she didn't feel right going out unchaperoned.
Wow.
So I had all these, all her boyfriends would bring me chocolates and all kinds of gifts, pre-dates, I'm sure, to try to keep me busy while we went to the movies and things like that.
But now you were already, I don't know if she was the cause of it, but she certainly fed it, because you were already doing little productions, little shows for your family, and reenacting scenes from a movie you just seen. Where did all that come from? Are there other theater people or artists in your family? Where did that come from?
You know, I have no idea, but it was something that the idea, the notion of storytelling was always very intriguing to me. And birthday parties, you know, whenever I had birthday parties, we would one of my favorite things was to gather all the kids that had attended and rehearse a production and put on a production as part of the birthday. I'm sure they probably hated coming to my birthday.
Oh no, we're going to her birthday party.
Oh God, not that crazy girl again. And certainly, you know, I started in dance really before I was even involved in theater. So I, you know, took ballet and some modern, but mostly Spanish dance. And so that's really what my initial connection to the arts was around that. And I had an incredible Spanish dance teacher who was a phenomenal choreographer. And I think the way that she moved bodies and in space and all of that was something that I was very intrigued by. And that's certainly something that, you know, contributes to the way that you tell a story and all of that. So that has certainly, you know, I think over time informed my work. But I really didn't get involved in theater till I was a senior in high school.
And then you moved more into being an actor, and as you mentioned, you were at ACT, which is extremely prestigious and not easy to get into. Is that where you met Geoff? Did I dream that, or is that where you met Geoff?
No, we met at the University of Florida first as undergraduates, you know, and that's where I had that, you know, lovely teacher who was had such nice things to say. So we
supportive,
met,
totally supportive,
very supportive. We met there, and Geoff got accepted into ACT. He was about a year ahead of me at University of Florida, and then he came out to San Francisco. Then I came out to San Francisco and got accepted to ACT as well. So he was a third-year student when I was a first-year student in the conservatory program. And we got married when we were in San Francisco, but we met in Florida.
So eventually, like Mickey and Judy, you decide, well, Mickey and Judy put on a show in a barn, but you two decided to put on a show at the Masonic Temple in Glendale. And I suspect you knew very little about running a theater or doing anything like that. What possessed you, other than it's something you felt you had to do, I guess?
Well, there was a passion for this kind of work, you know, these big canvas plays. That's what we had, you know, cut our teeth in when we attended ACT, and frankly found that when we got out, there weren't that many opportunities to perform these plays. And
especially in LA, especially in LA.
At that time, I mean, now there's so much more, but at that time there wasn't, you know, a lot that was happening around Shakespeare and classic plays. And so part of it was an artistic impulse, this desire to want to perform the kind of work that we had trained to do. So that was a piece of it. The other was Geoff was always, he often in his spare time would drive around and see if he could find a storefront, you know, someplace, because he always had this hankering to have a place where you could work. So there was that driver, and there was also the fact that we were, you know, married. We wanted to have a family and all of that, and the whole you know, regional theater actor experience necessitates that you're traveling all the time, and we would often be in, you know, different states, and you know, and we wanted to have a home base. So I think that all those things were working on us, but I think what drove it really was this artistic impulse to create our own work. And so we knew absolutely nothing about running a theater, zero. In fact, I remember going to Dalton's bookstore back when we had Dalton's bookstore in Glendale and buying How to Start a 501c3 book and sitting at a typewriter and filling out the paperwork. So in those early days, we were writing grants. We were really pretty much doing everything. And it was very much a grassroots effort that built to this institution that we have now, which is a real gift.
It's incredible, that trajectory, because the Masonic Temple, I think you even have to, I think you had to put up a stage, even it was 60 seats or something. You began and you were there growing for 20 years. Is that right?
Not quite, but almost, yeah, almost 20 years. So it's
And how did you fill the seats? I mean, people can't fill the seats today. I mean, how did you? There obviously people wanted to see it, or you wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, I always say, of course you probably Sylvie Drake from the Times. When we first started, when we did our first production of Hamlet, after the show, we would just say, hey, this is who we are. This is what you're doing. If you like what you see, tell your friends, and it was that kind of like word of mouth. And she came and covered the first rep that we did. When we presented our first 2 productions and repertory, she came out and she wrote a piece, not only just reviewing the shows, but talking about what this young company was attempting to do. And so I always tell her that I feel like she put us on the map, because for people that were out there that were craving experiencing classics in Los Angeles, and at that time, again, there wasn't that much happening around that, started to come to the theater. And that was really the beginning of it. And then the following year, we did our very first full season. And, back then people actually read newspapers. So for Sylvie Drake to write this piece, people actually read it, were interested, and responded by attending our productions. And so that's how it started. And we just started building slowly, and thankfully a lot of doors opened up to us, and some wonderful angels along the way that help you take the next step. And here we are now. Whenever I tell the story of A Noise Within and how we started and the Capitol project and building the building, when I'm done, I always think, oh my God, that is crazy. I cannot believe it actually happened.
I'm sure.
Because, the odds were not with us many a time.
And even today, you're talking about angels. You must, because even today, I mean, look, the Senate Theater Group can't keep the taper open. I mean, it's a very difficult time. Theaters have not rebounded so much. You survived the pandemic. You're still going strong. That's not an easy thing to do. So it's colossal what you've done. That's why I call you a theater maven.
Oh, I love that, theater maven. Yes, we are not immune to the challenges post pandemic. I think that there's been incredible loyalty to this organization. I think that there's a real sense of community at A Noise Within, and people feel like it's home for them. And I think part of not only the intimacy of the space, but the intimacy in terms of the relationship that they have with the leaders of the organization and the resident company and all of that really builds strong communities. So we've seen such loyalty all through the pandemic from our donors and patrons, and as we're building back, which all of us are post-pandemic, we're seeing that as well. So there's lots to be grateful for.
And it is a beautiful theater. It's 3/4, and it's very intimate. What is it, about 300 seat? What is it?
325.
Yeah, it's in Pasadena. If you haven't been, you got to go. I just love it. I should probably work in your press department. Are there any
I
open?
know, right? It's absolutely. And you know, the thing that's beautiful about that space that I love is that it's intimate in terms of the experience that you have as an audience member without sacrificing scale. So the space has so much scale to it that
Yes.
again, you're able to tell these epic stories in an intimate way.
That's what I'm saying. You walk in and there's no curtain, and you walk in and there's that set. You're like, oh my God. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So anyway, I think we're about to wrap. Is there anything you want to add or say or do anything?
No, I'm just waiting for you with your little notepad when we get to
Sweetie Todd. Sweetie Todd. You look for me. You look for me. I'll be there. Abelardo, see,
Yeah.
look, Our Lady.
That was great. Well, thank you so much. Could you tell us a little how we could find out what's going on at A Noise Within, where you're at, what shows are playing, how to purchase tickets, of course.
Absolutely. So we're currently producing Midsummer Night's Dream, and you have until the 12th of November for that. And then after that, we go right into A Christmas Carol, which is, a beautiful holiday story for the entire family. And that runs through November 24th. And the best way to get information is to go to www.anoisewithin.org. And there you'll have information on all our productions, including Sweeney Todd, and anything else that you might want to find out about the company.
All right, thank you.
He put it up there, so it'll be good. So we're wrapped. And anything you want to say, Abelardo?
No, this is I haven't been myself. I know La Plaza has done a couple things with The Noise Within.
Yeah.
I think it was last year. But I did not have the opportunity. But I know Dan showed up for that fundraiser, so thank you so much. It was Anna in
That's
the
right.
Tropics, I believe. Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
was
right.
great.
Let's see
It was
what we
great.
could do. Let's see what we could do in 2024.
Absolutely. So come at any time. You've got a ticket waiting for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Julia. I toast you again. You can toast me with your water.
You.
Is it at least flavored water? Is it at least flavored?
That's pretty good for a COVID-ridden interview.
He's got COVID, which I wasn't going to mention it, but yeah. But we're safe.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself, and thank you so much. And I'll see you at Sweeney Todd, if not before.
Okay, Dan, good to see you.
Okay, my
dear. Bye-bye, Abelardo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us out there. To En Casa con La Plaza Dan Guerrero happy hour. This was nice. And yeah, we got to check out to see what's going on at A Noise Within. Nothing but rave reviews from Dan, and of course Dan, he knows what's going on from here to there and everywhere. Thanks so much for joining us. Come on down to La Plaza de Cultura y Artes this Saturday, November 4th, starting at noon to 8 p.m. It's Encuentro de Jaraneros de California, the best son jarocho you could possibly listen to and dance to and be part of. It's not just performance, but it's also a learning about the culture, about the Veracruzano way of life, and vendors and food and so much more. Some incredible people. And towards the end, there'll be a fandango where musicians from all over, they come and join in on the fun with maybe a 20-minute version of La Bamba. Always a treat. Okay, so thank you so much to our sponsors, to our staff and board of trustees there at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, and of course to Dan Guerrero, the host of Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Hasta la próxima. Adiós. Bye-bye.